New wildfire warnings in Southern California this Monday night. The Canadians on edge.
I still have my stuff packed up by the door.
And the reality setting in for residents who've lost everything.
I cry and get up and keep crying.
Canada could be hit with Donald Trump's hefty tariffs in 1 week.
We do need to be preparing ourselves.
Why political experts say this could get ugly fast. The race to replace Justin Trudeau, the 5 people expected to join 2 official contenders. And from smuggled in a crate to doing great. What's next for this critically endangered baby gorilla?
Global National with Donna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. Southern California, already ravaged by a week of catastrophic wildfires, is now bracing for more. Winds are picking up again, threatening to reverse some of the hard-fought gains firefighting crews have made. As of this morning, the largest blaze, the Palisades fire, was only 14% contained. The Eaton fire was 33% contained. Red flag warnings are now in place again. Wind gusts of up to 112 kilometers an hour are forecast, strong enough to potentially cause explosive fire growth, according to the National Weather Service. 24 people are now known to have died. At least 23 others are reported missing. As they search incinerated neighborhoods, authorities warn the number of deaths will rise. Investigators are working to determine what sparked the fires. That could take months. Today, a lawsuit was filed against Edison, alleging its utility equipment ignited the deadly Eaton blaze. The big focus, though, is those fires. Neetu Garcha is in Altadena, California. Neetu.
Donna, as displaced residents anxiously wait to return to their neighborhoods, LA County officials are urging patience. Each day, they have the grim and painstaking task of doing grid searches across areas like this one here in Altadena. As grid searches unfold in areas like Altadena, the heartbreaking discovery of human remains is a daily reality. The search for survivors and the recovery of those lost is a relentless and grim task.
People are saying, I just want to go look at my house and I want to see what's left. We know that, but we have people literally looking for the remains of your neighbors.
Curfews and evacuation notices are still in place as fire crews brace for the worst.
The dry conditions and winds increasing, it's possible that evacuation orders may increase. I know overnight we saw some of the evacuation orders turn into warnings, but we can absolutely see some of these areas increase to mandatory evacuations again.
For film and TV producer Kent Speakman, an Alberta man and longtime Los Angeles resident, the latest weather warnings bring a sense of unease. He fled from the Sunset Fire threatening the Hollywood Hills, and the memory of what he saw still lingers.
The fire was huge. It was hundreds of feet of giant flame just coming, left all the stuff on the stove, grabbed what I could and jumped in the car. That's where the fire had gotten to. I still have my stuff packed up by the door, just in case. The winds are coming back up.
Lawyer Lorraine DeLessio from Toronto lives near the border of a Santa Monica evacuation zone. She's found herself on the front lines, protecting her home and opening her doors to families displaced by the fires.
We are obviously helping families at my own home. Myself, we're getting on the roof, watering down the house overnight during the daytime over and over and over again.
For those like this 82-year-old Pacific Palisades resident, the reality is much darker. His home, filled with decades of memories and life's work, is gone. He says at his age, rebuilding is impossible.
I get up at night, scream and cry. And sometimes my wife tells me to be strong. I cry and get up and keep crying. No more tears left for crying.
First responders, firefighters, and neighbors are doing what they can to help rebuild community spirit and keep hope alive. As law enforcement cracks down on crime in fire-affected areas, they're also warning of scams affecting those already devastated, including fake GoFundMe campaigns and the potential for insurance scams, promising to prosecute to the fullest extent anyone who rips off people or the system. Donna?
Neetu Garcha in Altadena, California. Thanks. With me now is Global News meteorologist Christy Gordon. Christy, walk us through what those red flag warnings about the wind mean.
Donna, red flag warnings mean that there is the potential for rapid fire spread as well as extreme fire behavior because of strong winds. So all of these areas are highlighted in red or under a red flag warning. It has been extended to 6 p.m. on Friday, meaning that we're anticipating strong winds on and off for the next several days, with winds ranging from 60 to 90 kilometers an hour and extremely low relative humidity. Residents in these areas are being urged to avoid any kind of ignition source, but officials are particularly concerned about these three areas highlighted in pink. They are concerned particularly dangerous situations. So it is from tonight, Tuesday at 4 a.m. right through until Wednesday at 12 p.m. where these areas have locally damaging winds in the forecast, with gusts potentially up to 112 kilometers an hour. That is a little bit less than what we saw last week, but it's still approaching hurricane strength winds, and the relative humidity is expected to range from 8 to 15%. So incredibly dry in these areas. So it extends from the Hearst Fire over towards Ventura, the I-5 corridor just north of the Hearst Fire, as well as the Malibu region. The winds are expected to be out of the northeast, which is slightly different from last week. It was more northerly last week, and so thus the direction of that fire spread. Now, it's not until Friday that we're going to see a more significant change where we have possible onshore flow, more cloud cover, and cooler temperatures. And Donna, we still have no significant rain in the forecast as far as we can see.
All right, Global News meteorologist Christy Gordon, thank you. We are all paying a price for severe weather events, including here in Canada, and climate change is driving up the cost. In 2024, insured damage caused by severe weather events in Canada surpassed $8 billion. That is a new record. $3 billion of that was caused by a hailstorm that hit Calgary in August, damaging even the airport there and several planes. That same month, the remnants of Hurricane Debbie left 500,000 people in the dark in Quebec and resulted in $3 billion in insured losses. And the wildfires that burned through parts of Jasper caused over $1 billion in insured damage. In 1 week, there will be a new man in charge in the United States, and Canada and the world will find out whether Donald Trump's threat to impose crippling tariffs on imports to the U.S. are real. Alberta's premier tried to get a sense of things when she visited Trump's Florida resort this weekend. As Heather Yourex-West reports, Danielle Smith admits she got no indication Trump is prepared to change his approach.
When Danielle Smith met Donald Trump in Florida over the weekend, there were smiles all around.
We had a friendly conversation and I thought quite constructive.
The Alberta Premier making the case once again that the U.S. needs her province's oil for affordable gas and American jobs. She conceded, though, Monday her argument had little sway. Tariffs on Canadian exports are coming, and soon.
We do need to be preparing ourselves for the fact that they're likely to come in on January 20th.
Smith plans to keep talking. She'll be in Washington for Trump's inauguration, but the federal government appears ready to take a stronger approach.
Going to meet with them, trying to wine and dine them, is a failed approach. Donald Trump is not rational. You can't discuss a plan over a meal with him. He is a bully.
While the NDP leader wants to stop all critical mineral exports to the U.S., over the weekend, Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly said Canada is not ruling out restricting energy exports too, a move Ontario's premier says he would support.
We have to use all the tools possible when our country's under attack economically, when our province is under attack economically. You just don't roll over.
But Smith warns any kind of oil embargo from Ottawa would create a conflict on two fronts.
Oil and gas is owned by the provinces, principally Alberta, and we won't stand for that. They will have a national unity crisis on their hands at the same time as having a crisis with our U.S. trade partners.
This is going to get ugly, and it's going to get ugly really fast. And because of the problems within the Canadian political structure, you're going to see just as much fighting on our own side than it is with the Americans.
Canadian leaders dangerously divided as a perilous era is set to begin. Heather Yourex-West, Global News, Calgary.
Canada needs a plan to deal with what's coming, and the Liberal Party needs to find a new leader to replace Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. The list of potential successors got a little bit smaller over the weekend. Our chief political correspondent David Akin is keeping track of who is in and who is out. David, start with who is not going for it and why.
Okay, Donna, well, let's start. Over the weekend, Transport Minister Anita Anand and Labour Minister Stephen McKinnon both withdrew their names from consideration. And McKinnon said the timelines were just too tight to properly run a campaign. This race, you'll remember, concludes in less than 2 months on March the 9th. Donna.
So the pool of contenders is shrinking, David. Who are the possibles that remain?
There's more. In fact, we had a new one today. First of all, we have 7 individuals who are using the Liberal Party's website to collect the signatures of at least 300 party members. That's required when you submit an entry form for the leadership. So those 7 are the former Bank of Canada Governor Mark Carney. He's expected to formally launch his campaign this week, possibly in Edmonton, though his campaign won't confirm that. Former BC Premier Christy Clark, she's thinking about it. She sent out a letter Sunday night to supporters, pitching herself as the Western candidate. Then there's former Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland. She's collecting signatures. So is Government House Leader Karina Gould, Natural Resources Minister Jonathan Wilkinson, Ottawa Area MP Chandra Arya, and former Montreal Area MP Frank Baylis. Now, a couple of other notables today. Nova Scotia MP Jaime Batiste says he's interested in the top job, and if he joins the race, he will be the only Indigenous candidate running for the leadership. And then there's Industry Minister François-Philippe Champagne. He is not collecting signatures at this time. He was in the leadership mix last week, and he is going to announce whether or not he's in or out of the race during a speech Tuesday in Toronto. Donna.
Okay, lots to come this week. David Akin in Ottawa, thanks. Canada is pledging more than $17 million in humanitarian aid to Syria. A Canadian delegation recently visited the Turkey-Syria border for the first time since the fall of the Assad regime. MP Omar Al-Gabra called it a pivotal moment after decades of conflict and oppression. He says the Syrian people now have an opportunity to build an inclusive and prosperous society. The money from Canada will help cover urgent needs such as clean water, food, and health care. In Nova Scotia, social workers and trauma therapists are alarmed over what the province is calling an epidemic of domestic violence. Over the weekend, another woman was killed. The 22-year-old was found inside this home in the town of Centerville, about an hour from Halifax. Her partner, 28-year-old Justin Joseph Benjamin, is charged with murder, arson, and disregard for human life. Her name has not been released. She is the 6th woman in Nova Scotia to be killed by her male partner since October. In Toronto, legal arguments have begun in the cases of 4 teenage girls accused of attacking and stabbing a homeless man. They are among 8 girls between the ages of 13 and 16 accused of swarming and fatally stabbing 59-year-old Kenneth Lee in December 2022. All were charged with second-degree murder. The 4 girls will be tried separately. A judge-only trial for 2 of them will begin later this month. The other pair will be tried by judge and jury in May. 4 others have already pleaded guilty to lesser charges of manslaughter or assault. Cautious optimism in the Middle East. Coming up, signs a ceasefire deal is finally in sight, and what's driving it? President-elect Trump has warned all hell will break loose if there isn't a deal to release the remaining hostages held in Gaza before he takes office on January 20th. That seems to have lit a fire under both sides. Reports are emerging a final draft of an agreement is circulating. Hamas officials recently shared a list of over 30 Israeli hostages they could release in the process. There has been talk of a deal before and then nothing materialized. Vincent McAviney looks at where things stand today.
Israeli strikes hit central Gaza on Sunday. More injured, more killed. The Hamas-run health ministry says at least 46,500 Palestinians have died, waiting for a ceasefire. Over the border in Israel, protests against the government's operations. In Parliament on Monday, families of the 94 remaining hostages held by Hamas pressed to prioritise their release. Both sides await word from Qatar, where indirect ceasefire talks are said to be making progress, but uncertainty remains over key aspects.
Israel wants a hostage deal. Israel is working with our American friends in order to achieve a hostage deal.
So there is a general fatigue. Most people don't see the political benefits of continuing the war. So they want to see a political horizon and definitely the return of the hostages.
US President Joe Biden only has 1 week left in office. On Sunday, he spoke to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in the first publicly announced call since October.
On the war between Israel and Hamas, we're on the brink of a proposal that I laid out in detail months ago, finally coming to fruition.
It's understood envoys to incoming US President Donald Trump are working with the current administration's team in Qatar.
Even if the ceasefire goes through, it is still not final by any means, and there are still things to be worked out. So I could definitely see this as something that bridges into next week beyond the inauguration. And so it is something that may go on the books as, in Trump's term rather than Biden's.
Who gets to claim the credit is of little to no importance for the hostages' families and the Palestinians suffering in Gaza. They can only hope that their negotiators are in the endgame. Vincent McAviney, Global News, London.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says he's ready to exchange North Korean soldiers for Ukrainians being held in Russia. Ukraine confirmed Saturday that 2 North Koreans were captured in Russia's Kursk region. Zelensky posted a short video appearing to show the injured men being interrogated. One of them claimed he was told he was on a training exercise and didn't realize he was fighting against Ukraine. It's believed roughly 11,000 North Korean troops have been deployed to support Russian forces. An earthquake in Japan triggered a tsunami alert today. The 6.6 magnitude quake struck the country's southwestern region just after 9 p.m. Residents in some coastal areas were told to get to higher ground. That advisory was lifted after about 2 hours, and there are no reports of major damage.
We've been adding some time to the clock.
This was supposed to be the first launch of Blue Origin's reusable Glenn rocket, but it was called off at the last minute. During the countdown, launch controllers repeatedly pushed back the liftoff, but technical problems persisted and they ran out of time. It's a big blow for Jeff Bezos, who founded Blue Origin to rival Elon Musk's SpaceX. A new launch date has not been set. Canada's women's soccer team gets a new coach ahead, who's taking the helm after an Olympics marred by scandal. Canada Post is increasing the cost of mailing a letter. The price of a single domestic stamp is now $1.44. If purchased in bulk, each stamp costs a little less, $1.24. It's a price increase of 25 cents. Costs for U.S., international mail and registered domestic mail have also increased. Well, after the drone spying scandal at last summer's Olympics, Canada's women's soccer team is starting fresh with a new head coach. Her name is Casey Stoney. She is a former captain of the British women's team. She has signed a 3-year contract to lead Canada's women's team. Most recently, Stoney was coach of the San Diego Wave, and she's coached Manchester United women's team. Stoney replaces Bev Priestman, who was fired along with 2 assistant coaches after it was discovered they used drones to spy on opponents at the Paris Games. And BC's Nick Taylor has won the Sony Open Golf Tournament in Hawaii. Taylor came from behind to win in the final round yesterday. The PGA says he had a 1 in 250 shot at winning the title. The victory sends Taylor to the prestigious Masters tournament, and he has now jumped from 73rd to 29th in the world rankings. Pulled from a plane's cargo hold next, what the future holds for this young gorilla. A meteorite that hit very close to a home in PEI has become the first to have the sound of its impact recorded. That's it. Doorbell cam footage captured it landing in front of a house in Charlottetown in July. The rock was sent to the University of Alberta for testing, and it is now officially confirmed as a meteorite. Scientists say it's historic because of the rare audio recording of the rock's landing. A baby gorilla has had a tumultuous first 5 months of life and is now making headlines. He was found in a wooden crate in a plane's cargo hold at Istanbul's airport last month, being shipped illegally from Africa to Asia. Mike Armstrong explains what happened next and what the future holds for the young gorilla now.
In a short time, this little gorilla has gone through some big changes. Veterinarians say he no longer seems scared or shy. He's more and more comfortable and healthy. This conservation official says over the last 3 weeks, the gorilla's put on weight about 1 kilogram and grown about 4 centimeters. Now, when he was found last month, the box he was in wasn't much bigger than him. The gorilla was being shipped from Nigeria to Thailand through Turkey. His box was spotted in a plane's cargo hold. There was no permit to ship what is an endangered species. The gorilla was moved to a local zoo, which then held a naming contest. The winner, Zeytin, the Turkish word for olive. Officials say the goal is to return him to a safe and natural environment. They're in talks with several countries and the International Union for Conservation of Nature. Well, according to the conservation group, the Gorilla Organization, there are fewer than 160,000 eastern and western lowland gorillas living in the wild. There are 2 other species as well. All 4 are classified officially as endangered or critically endangered. If returned to nature, Zeytin could be looking at a long life. Gorillas usually live between 35 to 40 years. He's also about 10 kilograms now and could end up more than 25 times that, meaning if he's not returned soon, it might get more complicated. Mike Armstrong, Global News, Montreal.
And that is Global National for this Monday. I'm Donna Friesen. Tonight's Your Canada is Charland Lake in Timmins, Ontario. Thanks for watching and hope to see you here again tomorrow. Bye-bye.